Every claim must be vindicated by empirical research, knowledge, or evidence so as to become a fact. Don't just denounce or refute a claim without having to find its cause. And don't just accept a claim so as to conform and be like everyone else who believes it without having to find its roots or agenda behind it. Infinite stories have been told about Africa, many of them by foreign nations. I think that should raise eyebrows, with Africa not permitted to tell her own story single-handedly. Many myths about her have come up as a result of maybe a lack of understanding, disinformation, misapprehension, or negligence. A lack of understanding in that these foreign nations interpret Africa and her culture according to the hypothetical analysis, rather than what the culture and every aspect pertaining to it really signifies. Stoking up misapprehension. Disinformation suppresses the truth and can serve the purpose of hiding certain African greatness, which when known could trigger a revolution. Simply, when a person gets to know his or her strength, they may change and become strengthful. Negligence is a disease spreading rapidly because many aren't ready to go to the extra mile for the truth, but choose to go by the mainstream narrative, even when the abundance of evidence is in the contrary. Hello, good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning, and I hope your night was beautiful. I'd like to welcome you to another session of Just a Podcast. As usual, I'm your host with the most. They call me Timothy, and as today, I'm doing a monopod. It's just a continuation series of tales left untold, and today I'd like to discuss more about issues concerning Africa and the tales around Africa that have been hidden. More so, let's begin with Africa and then we'll go to the African leaders. Today I don't want to discuss it in a more of a philosophical manner, but just in a literal manner about the strengths that we as Africa have, but we suppress our stories and we let others tell our stories for us. As usual, don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, on AudioMac, and on iTunes, and even on YouTube, even though it doesn't have a visual yet. But we'll keep on trying as time goes by. So, in sum, on account of innumerable historical disruptions like enslavements, revolution, and incursions by foreign entities, history has in fact been rewritten, and African history in particular severely skewed. All these aspects or elements and many more prelude any further knowledge of Africa. Notwithstanding, there is a surfeit of credible sources that keep in touch with the undistorted history of the philosophical dark continent, bold enough to portray facts that disapprove the broadcasted hazy, malicious versions, a clear indication of the everlasting racial war and antagonisms. Currently, if you see around Africa, mostly our stories have been told by the foreign countries. Even when we have exciting news per se, most of the international press media are the ones who are the first one to project the stories, so the news, and later on is when our local media tend to focus on the same. So what does that tell you? It tells you we still have the superiority complex. We still feel like the white man, or not putting the white man in this context, but it makes you feel like the Western countries holds more power over us in anything they do, and that doesn't reflect correctly on our side, of which it means that we need to amplify our stories. And how do we amplify our stories? Maybe through acting up, through standing up for ourselves, and through lifting our voice, lifting each other's voices, and making our story heard and making ourselves heard. When we push back to the frontiers of research and dig deep into African history, we expand our knowledge, therefore making it easy for us to understand many intriguing questions asked today. We would need credible sources if we are to fetch the correct answers. The sources must be apolitical and not serving any hidden agenda. In fact, our fact-finding mission, at some point, we have to mention the name of different countries scouring the past for the history of the dark continent. Africa, a name that is only centuries old, is synonymous with many other countries that went in the distant past. If you take a look, like our own country, we've had our own icons and heroes per se. I may say heroes and heroines, but we don't have the exact history or the exact stories of how they spent their lives. The only little story we have is the one we read online or the one we've been studying in our curriculum that tell us they fought for independence. They went to the forest, and it only ends there. The other files, the dark files, they have been hidden, or maybe you can never get access to them. They're in the dark web. So how are we able to tell the stories? Are you willing to be able to tell these stories? Therefore, I might take this opportunity to look for anybody out there who is willing to come and hold a session with me so that we could get to talk more about this. I'm done discussing the stories left untold in a more philosophical manner, and I'd love to have a one-on-one session with the person who has done his own research, who has his own facts or her own facts, and would love to express their own views on air. So if it's you out there, please leave a shout out on the comment, so maybe I could get back to you or somebody else could get back to you, and we could invite you. So as for today, I'd love to end the session there because I know it's a bit of more information and you need to process the information. So let me give you some time to process the information, and we'll meet in the next podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rhythm Moses. They call me Timothy, and this is just a podcast.